retard. That's his favorite buzzword for everybody, is a retard. And he's totally slamming on me. It's like, I've never had nothing to do with this until he dragged me into it. Before, so I might be a little awkward at it. One of these days, I'll be able to say, hey, thank you for your super chat. Excuse me. I wonder when she has to go off and on like that. She sure is a nice lady. I like her. I like the Czech lady. Hi, Shush Bomb. How are you? I hope you're doing awesome. That what? That there was a little scourge of
that you were experimenting.
Oh, if I say yes, and what if I say no?
Well, it would make more sense.
Well, listen, man, I'm not a suspect. I should be, but I'm not.
I want to know what's in your basement.
Well,
where's this guy's face at? How come we can only see you and not him?
Because they're not on video. What's in the basement? We've got some boxes of things, and there's dirt floor.
So there is a basement.
Yeah, it's a great night. Hope the good Lord blesses you. Oh, I have the link. I have the link copied on my thing. But I don't know if I should put it out there. I don't want to mess up her StreamYard because she's already having trouble with the link. I don't want it to mess up her link. I'm trying not to mess with anything except for talk.
This is from the Elko Daily News Press. Montello shooter continues on to trial in district court. January 24th, 2014. After enduring accusations and rumors, Lester Alderman testified Thursday that he gave his tormentor two choices: let's fight it out or be friends. A second later, he said Ronald Cully shot him in the ankle outside the Cowboy Bar in Montello. In relation to the shooting, Cully is charged with battery with the use of a deadly weapon, or alternatively, battery with a deadly weapon resulting in substantial bodily harm. At the conclusion of the preliminary hearing Thursday, Justice of the Peace Mason Simmons bound over Cully to district court on both counts. Alderman, Deputy District Attorney Tyler Ingram, primary witness who entered the courtroom on crutches, testified on December 20th. Cully accused the victim of stealing a pair of overalls, which escalated to a confrontation outside the bar and ended with the victim suffering a gunshot wound through his ankle and foot. The spent bullet was found inside his boot, according to Alderman. The victim said his relationship with Cully was bad from the beginning. In October, Alderman said a mutual friend helped arrange an email correspondence between himself and Cully, whom he hadn't met before. Alderman, living at the time in Salt Lake City and in need of work, agreed to move to Montello and do a few odd jobs around Cully's house. In exchange, Alderman said he was to receive room and board plus $100 after the jobs were complete. Alderman said he did electrical work, hung sheetrock, installed a window, cut wood, and other general work, all without pay. I never did complete the job because every time I turned around, he was changing his mind, he said. In addition, Alderman and Cully didn't uphold his end of the bargain because he didn't provide enough food. Alderman said he had to supplement his meals with food from the food bank, and on at least one occasion, Alderman gave food to Cully. The victim testified. During his stay, Alderman said Cully began accusing him of stealing stuff, namely a bottle of tequila, a bottle of Jägermeister, and food. The victim continued living with Cully, however, doing small jobs until a law enforcement officer arrived one day, sometime after Thanksgiving, and arrested Alderman. He had a failure to appear warrant out of West Wendover related to a 2004 DUI charge. He said when Alderman returned to Montello from his stint in jail, Cully had removed the latch on the door in the trailer he was living in. At that moment, Alderman said he decided he was done living on Cully's property, and so he moved in and worked for a Montello resident Alderman only knew as Russ. Later, Alderman moved in with another man from Montello. On December 20th, Alderman's 58th birthday, he went to the Cowboy Bar with Russ and drank a couple of draft beers and a shot of alcohol. Cully came and sat down at the bar near two men and asked about coveralls Alderman had been using, which belonged to the defendant. Alderman said he told Cully they were at Russ's house and he would return them the next day. Later that evening, Cully began to leave the bar, and he mentioned that with his head that he wanted to talk to Alderman outside. The victim told the court. Vexed, Alderman met Cully outside the bar, ready to put an end to the Cully's accusations, either by talking through them and reconciling as friends or fighting mano a mano. He said. The victim said he knew Cully packed a gun around with him. He asked Cully to stow the gun in the defendant's home next door to the bar, so it wouldn't be used if the confrontation led to a physical fight. I said, "Go check your gun," Alderman told the court. Alderman said Cully fired the first shot and said, "I checked my gun." The victim saw a bullet hit the ground near his foot. He described himself as shocked and dumbfounded. The 2 more shots were fired from Cully's .38 caliber revolver, with the final bullet hitting his foot. He said Alderman made his way back into the bar, where he received some help with bandaging up his wound, and someone called 911, he said. Sheriff's deputies arrived about 40 minutes later and found Cully at his home. He surrendered without incident and was booked into jail. In the defense's closing statements, no denial was made that Cully shot Alderman. Defense attorney Gary Woodbury said, under Nevada law, Cully was in the right to use deadly force against Alderman. In an interview recorded by Sheriff's Detective Billy Hood, Cully said he was walking home that night when Alderman followed him outside and berated him. Cully empathetically claimed he was only trying to defend himself against Alderman's aggression. I told him, "Get back, Lester. Get away from me." But he wouldn't do it. He just kept coming after me, so I pulled the gun out and I fired 1, 2, but he wouldn't back off, Cully said on tape. It was self-defense. The first 2 shots were clearly warnings, Woodbury argued, but because Alderman didn't back away or leave, Cully had no choice. Alderman testified he was in the process of turning around when the final shot was fired. From my point of view, no rational jury will ever convict him of this crime, Woodbury said. Montello resident Lena Carroll, who was called as a state witness, testified to hearing 3 gunshots on December 20th from the backyard of her home, down the road from the Cowboy Bar. She said the first 2 shots happened in rapid fire, then a short pause. Then the 3rd shot rang out. Alderman said the first shot was followed by his 10-second pause, then the last 2 shots were made in a rapid fire. I heard him say, "I got it," Carroll said. Although she couldn't see the shooter very well because of the darkness, she said the voice and mannerisms matched Cully's. Simons ruled that the state's evidence met the slight or marginal standard required to bind over a defendant to trial, but emphasized the word slight. Woodbury also argued for a motion to reduce bail or release Cully on his own recognizance on condition that Cully stay in Elko, abstain from alcohol, and surrender all firearms. Originally, Cully was arrested for attempted murder and held on a $100,000 bail. The DA's office never filed an attempted murder charge, but Cully's bail remained at $100,000. The prosecution argued against lowering Cully's bail Thursday on account of welfare and safety of the people of Montello. Ingram read seemingly angry selections from a stack of papers that he said were pulled from an online blog or chat room allegedly written by Cully, in which the defendant referenced making the news by striking back at his enemies with firearms, including a sentence about shooting someone in the foot. I yearn for the day when I can go to the signs in each of the town and replace M's with an R, and replace the population of 300 plus 1 with a 1, Ingram read. Cully was known around Montello as Ron Tello. Ingram interpreted Cully's online remarks and wished to wipe out everyone in the town, leaving only himself. Woodbury conceded Cully's writings were odd, but he argued they shouldn't be taken seriously. This nonsensical talk. Is this defendant in a nutshell? Woodbury said to the judge, "You've sat here all day and listened to him, and he just yaps, but there's no threat to it at all." Simons ended with Ingram and ordered Cully's bail to remain the same. Woodbury, sitting closest to Cully throughout the hearing, was the recipient of most of the defendant's yaps. At one point, the prosecution's direct examination of the victim, Woodbury, whom Cully simply referred to as counselor, asked the judge for a moment, during which he told his client to stop whispering at him so he could hear the witness testimony. Even after Woodbury reprimanded him for talking, Cully maintained a noticeable presence in the courtroom, with nonverbal gestures and facial expressions. Cully frequently looked back at the few sitting in the courtroom gallery and cocked an eyebrow, smiled, and furrowed his forehead. The defendant fidgeted throughout the trial, at times craned his neck to the evidence, and made exaggerated head nods in agreement or wild head shakes in rebuff, depending on that moment's testimony. Before hearing began, and during breaks, Cully bantered with anyone in earshot. At various points, he told the lawyer jokes, tried to bum cigarettes, claimed the Beatles were merely John Lennon's first backup band, and made sure the Free Press knew not only his Ron Tello moniker, but also its proper spelling.
dude, I watched the video that I noticed you jumped in this arena when this whole case went down, and then you started posting or reposting videos of the sheriffs or whatever law enforcement coming into your building. I don't know what they were doing or what they were looking for, but you were like guiding them through. That is a massive building inside.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something about that video. It's probably the one I'm thinking about. I didn't post it, and it had nothing to do with Dylan. It was done like 10 years ago when a fellow named John Hughes was staying at my place, and bounty hunters come and took him away. And I didn't know he was a wanted fugitive.